Alright, I don't know how to do intros, so today we're going to be talking about NaotoK and Susanoo as a team. The reason I'm using this team instead of a more traditional team is that I think it's underexplored and needs some more documentation on the things that it can do to demonstrate its strengths. The team excels at setting up sandwiches, which lead into very hard to block or unblock situations incredibly easily, as well as having incredibly high damage output in basically every situation. Both characters have great pokes on the ground, as well as good assists to help the other one in matchups that they struggle in normally. However, this is also a weakness of the team because if you're forced into a situation where you're not able to call and assist safely, you will have very bad matchup problems on both sides, since characters like Nine or Adachi or other characters who can really stuff these two out, if they don't have access to assists, will just be able to run rampant on you. NaotoK's assists are good at covering Susanoo's weak areas, as his 4P helps anti-airing, which is great. Susanoo's 2B and DP are not particularly great at that. Meanwhile, his 6P covers a lot of space and it comes in at an angle, which is hard for zoning and other forms of long-range play to contest, as well as it leads into very, very good situations if they block it. Team does actually have a decent tackle plus assist because you can't punish tackle on block as it's only -3, but it leaves an incredibly small gap, so if they tried to do anything, they'll end up getting hit by his assist and then you can convert that. However, if they don't do anything, it's your turn. Incredibly plus, and you have an active switch window with both characters in their base and Susanoo point, which is incredibly dangerous for them to be in that position because you have things like 5B active swap Grand Viper, which leads into unblockable, hard blockable, fuzzy, you name it. They're basically guaranteed to get hit in that situation unless they just have amazing defense. And even then, sometimes that won't matter because it's just unblockable. As for assists on NaotoK's side, Susanoo's 6P helps healing zoners immensely because you get rate 35 hit scan assist. His 4P also helps cover the space directly in front of Naoto in the air, which is very hard for him to control normally, since he cannot just do a regular sway in neutral. He has to do this, and his DP is super far forward, which can make you whiff in those situations, so his only real way is 2B, but that's not particularly large. This team does have a form of Rekka plus assist with Susanoo's 6P, but you have to be aware of the distances you do it at. If you do it like here, even though I'm plus 1 or 2 in that situation, the issue is I'm too far away for that to actually matter, and if you do that on a character like Mitsu, they can just mash on you right there because you can't control that space in time. So you have to be aware of the distance you do it at, something like this, so you can be close enough to enforce. And then you also have to be aware of distances, because if I do it in like this distance, I only need to hit once and then I'm very plus, but I can't do that second hit or else I end up just might as well have not done anything and just try to salvage the situation in that situation instead of trying to enforce my turn and be able to do things like slash cave and whatnot. Start up Naoto's incredible pressure. On ways to set up sandwiches, some of the most common ways would be super jump plus 4P, run under 4P, (6P), and then with NaotoK point, you obviously have OP set up. set up a sandwich in the corner if I can actually do it right. Okay, I messed it up, but if you do it right, you get a sandwich no matter what they do in that situation. Then you also can do this. And just things like that lead into sandwich situations incredibly easily, which also lead into ridiculous mix-ups or just straight up unblockables very easily with this team. Another great strength of the team is in the event you do an unblockable, you can use NaotoK to make the follow-up unburstable until Susanoo has gone back, making the route burst safe again, as you'll be able to call assists. Another great strength of the team is going to be Susanoo can set up fuzzies incredibly easily through a large number of ways, including doing dancing dual hit on block and using the final hit after you overhead them where the gap would normally be. You can use that final hit to set up a fuzzy because they're forced in the block standing, and that has a ton of block stun. By using these fuzzies, you give this team three-way mix-up in a lot of different situations because you also have access to cross-up and pain fuzzy, as opposed to normal teams which might only have a fuzzy or no fuzzy in that situation. You get to set up three-way mix that leads into good reward no matter what hit they take. Of course, the team can set up fuzzies going from NaotoK to Susanoo, but those are much fewer and far between in the times you'll actually be able to do them, and I do not think they're universally doable. But if it's like a character, I can buffer JC active switch, have the JC distance, that will set up that, which can of course lead into another frame 16 fuzzy, so it's not really able to be reacted to. They're just guessing 50-50. They take about 6.5 to 7k if they take the overhead, and 8k if they take the low, so that the reward is pretty skewed to have them be blocking low in that situation more, which makes fuzzies a great option for Susanoo's mix, which you can do in most matchups. But it's just a thing to keep in mind when you're able to do it, because obviously you want it to be, this team requires you to be using fuzzies and a lot of other stuff that's more complicated in order to get your mix-ups, but it has a lot of ways of doing that, which is what makes it so good. I don't think it's like the strongest Susanoo team out there, but I think it's definitely a good one. More exploration. There's a lot of good stuff to be found in it. You have great stagger on both sides, high damage output, amazing corner carry, great Oki. Just a lot of good things, but it's got some matchup issues that are shared between the characters. Even though their assists help deal with that, it does still become a problem if one of them dies or it's low and you don't want to be calling them. You need to be able to keep this team's momentum going really strong, which requires a lot of more complicated options than just, tackle plus assist into unblockable into win the game stuff like Susanoo usually does, or things like that. You have to be playing a lot smarter and using a lot more complicated tactics.